The storm came out of nowhere. One second the desert sky over Texas was calm and gold, the next it was boiling with dark clouds that swallowed the sun. The wind hit like a freight train, and the millionaire, Olivia Hartwell, had never felt so small in her entire life. She clung to the side of the broken-down Jeep she had rented that morning, her hair whipping across her face, dust burning her eyes. She wasn't used to fear. She wasn't used to feeling out of control. But right then, she was terrified. Through the roar of the wind, she saw a cowboy sprinting toward her, a stranger, tall and broad-shouldered, fighting the storm like he'd done this 1,000 times. And when he reached her, when he grabbed her trembling hand, she shouted from pure instinct, "Don't let go of my hand." She didn't know him, but somehow, she trusted him in a way she didn't understand. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe, like, and comment to support the channel. You're watching Kindness Journey, where powerful, real-life inspired stories remind us how kindness can change the world, and sometimes, even save it. The cowboy's name was Mason Cole, a local rancher who lived miles away from the nearest gas station, let alone a town. He had seen her stranded Jeep from a distance just minutes before the storm rolled in. He didn't hesitate, didn't think about the danger. He just acted, because where he came from, you don't leave people behind. You don't ask who they are or how much money they have. You help because it's the right thing to do. Olivia squeezed his hand as the wind howled even louder, pushing both of them sideways. Mason leaned in close so she could hear him. "Ma'am, we gotta move. That Jeep ain't gonna hold up." His voice was steady, strong, like he'd weathered storms far worse. She could barely nod. She couldn't remember the last time someone called her ma'am. She was used to being called Ms. Hartwell, especially by employees who feared her reputation. But right then she wasn't a CEO or a billionaire investor. She was just a frightened woman clinging to a stranger. They started walking, step by slow step, as the sand stung their skin like needles. Olivia felt her legs wobble. She wasn't built for rough terrain, especially in designer flats now ruined by mud. Mason noticed her struggling. Without a word, he wrapped his arm around her shoulders, guiding her, protecting her. She had never been held like that, not with control, not with confidence, but with genuine care. Halfway across the open field, Olivia tripped on a rock hidden beneath the dirt. She fell forward, dragging Mason down with her. As she hit the ground, a flash of lightning struck too close, lighting up the sky with a violent crack. She screamed, shaking so hard she couldn't stand. Mason knelt beside her. "Hey! Look at me. You're all right." His voice softened. He brushed the dust from her face. "You're not alone." She didn't know why it made her cry, but it did. Maybe because no one had told her she wasn't alone in years. She had everything, money, fame, success, but no one who stood beside her in moments like these. When she finally managed to stand again, leaning heavily on him, they continued through the storm. Mason guided her toward an old wooden barn, a storm shelter hidden behind his ranch. As they reached the door, he pulled it open with both hands, and they slipped inside just as the sky unleashed a violent hailstorm. Inside, the air was still. Quiet. Safe. Olivia collapsed onto a pile of hay, trembling from the cold and the shock. Mason lit a lantern, its warm glow filling the barn with soft, golden light. He draped an old but clean blanket over her shoulders. She held it close, grateful in a way she had never been before. "You saved my life," she whispered. Mason shook his head. "No, ma'am. Just did what anyone should." He sat across from her, tipping his hat back. "Storm's gonna pass soon. You just rest." She looked at him, really looked at him. His hands were rough, his boots worn, his clothes faded from years of sun. Yet he carried himself with a quiet strength she rarely saw in the world she lived in. People in her circles chased money, power, status. But this man, he chased what mattered, being decent. "You don't even know who I am," she said softly. "Doesn't matter," he replied. "Kindness don't check bank accounts." Her chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Minutes turned into an hour as the storm raged outside. Olivia found herself telling Mason things she'd never told another soul, how lonely success felt, how she'd forgotten what real connection looked like, how the world expected her to be made of steel. Mason listened without judgment. He didn't interrupt. He didn't pity her. He just listened. When she finished, he rested his hands on his knees. "Sounds like you've been carrying too much alone." She swallowed hard. "Maybe I have." The storm finally quieted. The hail softened to rain, the thunder faded into the distance. Mason stood and opened the barn door. The fresh, cool air drifted inside, carrying the scent of wet earth. "Storms passed," he said. But neither of them moved. Olivia looked down at her hand still holding his. She hadn't realized she hadn't let go. She squeezed gently. "Thank you," she whispered. "For being there when no one else was." Mason gave a slow, warm smile. "Anytime." As they stepped outside, Olivia glanced back at the barn, the old wooden shelter that had changed something inside her. She didn't feel like the same person who had yelled, "Don't let go of my hand," in fear. She felt grounded. Human. Connected. Before they parted ways at her repaired Jeep, Olivia turned to Mason. "You taught me something today," she said. "What's that?" "That the world still has good people. That kindness still matters. Money can't buy that." He nodded. "Kindness is free. But it's worth more than anything you can own." She smiled, a real, unpolished smile she hadn't felt in years. "I'll remember that." They exchanged one last look, the kind that lingers long after goodbye. Then Olivia drove away, watching him shrink in her rearview mirror, standing tall against the sunlit horizon. Back in her world of sky-rise meetings and billion-dollar deals, she carried Mason's kindness with her. She started slowing down. Listening. Treating people with the gentleness he had shown her. One storm. One cowboy. One act of kindness. It changed her life, and reminded her that sometimes strangers enter our lives not by accident, but to help us find our way back to who we were meant to be. And sometimes, all it takes, is a hand you can hold on to. Let this story remind us all, kindness costs nothing, but its impact can last forever. Spread it, share it, live it, because you never know whose life you might change today.